The Odyssey is the biggest summer release of 2026, and it has been viewed by millions, and inquiring minds want to know, is it good?
No, 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 hell no!
Ask the mainstream media, and they'll tell you the Odyssey is a star-studded adaptation of Homer's Greek epic, but it has irked Elon Musk and Trump's MAGA base over its casting choices and riled up historical purists over Nolan's armor design and use of American accents and modern English dialogue. Let me help you guys. Not that you deserve it. You forgot. We are also irked by the casting of a not-so-attractive woman to be the most attractive woman in history, simply because she's black, and casting a woman to play a man. But these monkeys with keyboards are convinced critics didn't exist before Donald Trump. But Nolan took the criticism in stride, telling The Telegraph it comes with the territory. These conversations that happen before people see the film, they're always irrelevant because no one having them knows what the film actually is yet. Well, let's put that little theory to the test. Was it all just internet bluster when people came out before the film to decry some of its casting choices?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Well, my friend, now that the release has happened, the film told the trailer to hold its beer, because everything that people were irked about before has become righteous indignation. But don't expect that to be seen in the box office totals. William Goldman was right when he said no one in Hollywood knows anything.
The people are retarded.
Now, some would tell you that his quote meant to convey that there are no sure bets in an industry that is completely unpredictable. However, when it comes to Nolan, the best living filmmaker, doing The Odyssey, the most epic story in antiquity, one could have predicted dollar signs. But it also seems that the online commentariat nailed the issues with this film before it even began.
Disappointed!
You'll have to forgive my salty tone, but this one hits close to home because this is such an unfortunate miss. Yes, it's epic. Yes, the film is beautiful. Yes, it's wonderfully acted. And yes, Nolan could have hit this thing out of the park if he didn't absolutely step on rakes every step along the way, leaving us all asking why. Why did he do this? I do think I have an answer, but before I get to it, let's first go to the family friendliness of this film, the casting, and then the story, and then we'll finally answer why Nolan screwed up his own film the way that he did. So families need to be aware of the fact that the film has 3 F words and the S word is used once. There's some additional mild profanities, and with all the violence, most small children are discounted from this film anyway. But then there are older kids, and there may be people like myself who want to introduce their older children to one of the most important stories in Western civilization by one of the most important filmmakers of our time. And I wish I could recommend this movie for that reason, but the aforementioned issues noticed in this film keep me from doing exactly that. So let's tackle the cast issues first. Anne Hathaway is written as a feminist superhero. Her husband Odysseus goes out to fight a battle, leaving her all alone. And when he doesn't return, there are men who are vying for the throne. While Odysseus is out, she finds herself fighting man after man and telling all of them that she is capable of leading without her husband.
Sin launches onto a bin and buggers it. Crikey, he's hurt both his kraken sack with that one.
Rather than using cunning and wisdom until her husband returns, she uses indignation and a chip on her shoulder, which all men have come to love in modern women. Odysseus, on the other hand, is stoic, but constantly emotionally tormented by the decision he's had to make as a military leader. And now here come the biggies. I feel no reason to tell you that Lupita Nyong'o is a perfectly beautiful Helen to assure you that this doesn't have anything to do with race. I'm rather going to be totally honest with you and say, I don't really think that's true. I don't think Lupita has the face that could potentially launch 1,000 ships. And for that reason, she takes us out of the story. Because it's not believable that an African woman became the queen of one of the largest Grecian cities of the time, and it isn't believable that Paris thought this woman was so gorgeous that he didn't care if he was starting World War by having an affair with her. If you might ask, kind sir, would you say the same thing if a white European woman had been cast? To that I can only reply, why, thank you for asking so kindly, because usually this kind of race-baiting nonsense in movies is only meant to point fingers at people and call them racist, but my answer is yes. Which is why I have to tell you, it seems that Lupita was cast merely to create controversy. This has nothing to do with color. It has to do with storytelling. We're not as dumb as Hollywood thinks, and we can tell when something was done that has nothing to do with the story at all and everything to do with advancing an agenda. Besides, all the commenters who astutely pointed out that her beauty doesn't have to be legit because it's nothing more than a pretext for a bunch of bloodthirsty men to launch a battle does nothing to help this film, because actually it only goes to the bigger problem with the narrative of Nolan's film, and that is that it seems to be less about Odysseus and the Odyssey and more about, well, modernity. And this is on full display when it comes to Ellen Page's casting. Ellen is not playing Achilles, as some rumored before the film was released, but rather Sinon, a man never mentioned in the Odyssey, but only in Dante's Inferno and the Aeneid. And Sinon is condemned in the Inferno because he's responsible for tricking the Trojans into accepting the Trojan horse. Some have suggested that this is an op by Nolan to put a woman that thinks he's a man in the role of a trickster, but Nolan is not playing 3D chess here, folks. I can guarantee you with absolute certainty that he is not really trying to subtly convey a message by casting Ellen Page. Rather, he's more likely doing that woman a favor because she absolutely destroyed her credibility when she decided to pretend to be a man when she's actually nothing but a woman that's maybe 115 pounds soaking wet.
Beta!
Placing Ellen Page as Sinon in a story where he never appears is again proof that Nolan is okay taking risks that violate the story for the sake of his own vain purposes. And this goes to the ultimate problem with this film. It seems like a vanity project more than it is an attempt to honor the source material. If I were to give this film the most charitable reading, it would be this. The plot seems to be something like a society must be bound together by truths that we hold as sacred. And if we don't, then ultimately we get to have a guilt trip, I guess. In the story, it's called Zeus's Law, which really is more of a biblical mandate to do unto others. So I appreciate the film for that purpose. But unfortunately, all it does is condemn Odysseus to incessant guilt and self-imposed exile. But here's the problem. Moral duties do create a sense of guilt if not performed. But these duties push us on towards something bigger, something more holy, something transcendent. And it helps us remember that these rules are not in place just to condemn us, but to actually cause us to look above our own plight, maybe to look to God.
Weird.
So when a filmmaker goes out of his way to show you that his casting and his agenda is more important than any of those themes, we see that he really isn't interested in telling us a story worth hearing. So to use a word from ancient Greek mythology, this movie suffers from hubris. Being one of the biggest filmmakers of all time can get you high on your own supply if you're not careful. And how else would you explain Nolan unapologetically taking his version of the Odyssey from a feminist author who wanted to give modern audiences a new lens to see an old story? And for the record, Wilson, who is the author in question here, is the one who is to blame for the modern vernacular seen in the movie, like dad and mom, rather than mother and father, and the infamous "let's go."
Why are you gay?
In my mind, that makes this film reason enough to push to the side, but also reason enough to accuse Nolan of hubris here. And it's not just him that's the issue. It's a societal problem, and it comes from the creeping secularism of our time. In other words, when there is nothing that is sacred, nothing will truly be holy or untouchable by modern hands, including the Odyssey. As Chesterton writes, it isn't that we stop worshiping something when we become secular. It's that we will worship anything, including ourselves, when God is not our focus. And I think that's what we have on full display when you place modern casting decisions and modern interpretations over and above the importance of an ancient story. That creates a show of overbloated self-importance more so than anything else. Perhaps being one of the greatest filmmakers of all time gives somebody the belief that they can fly close enough to the sun or do whatever they want to with one of the most important stories of all time. Rather than heap on guilt to Nolan for doing just that, I'll just mention there is a positive out of all this mess. I am praying for a new brand of storyteller who can take on stories like this and be serious enough to shine a faithful light on the universal truths pregnant in these stories so that rather than creating division, we can see a work of art that can unite us all in praise. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this review, don't forget to subscribe, and also you can check out more reviews just like this by clicking on the screen, because YouTube selected a video it's sure you will love. You can also comment down below, but most importantly, go with God.